Shalom and blessings, everyone. Wonderful to see you all this evening. Is my volume okay? Seems to be okay. Well, thank you for joining us. Let's take a moment to be inward before we explore this fun little section. If you just take a moment now just to let go of the day and just be in the moment. Relaxing the body. Letting go of the surface. And allowing yourself just to focus on your breath. Breathing in and out. And letting go. Relaxing. And allowing yourself to just naturally go inward. Breathing in, breathing out. Centering yourself. And from within and behind your heart, allow the light of awareness to dawn. Extending this light, filling your body. In this centeredness, in this mindfulness, may we open our heart, our minds, to the Holy Spirit, inviting and welcoming the Holy Shekinah to join within and through us, to allow her inspiration, her presence and power to take us up. Giving thanks, giving praise. May we extend this light now to all beings. Amen and amen. So we come to a fun little section that has a lot of mysteries. And even though it was just a few pages long, boy, where to begin with these mysteries? But I think keeping it simple and just expanding from there, we can delve into some interesting mysteries. And obviously your insights and your angles of view will be very interesting to hear as we explore this little section. As the story goes here in this little section, Salome is giving a discourse on a Shabbat, on a Sunday, and is giving inner teachings on forgiveness. And when a woman comes to her speaking or asking about these, to give give these teachings, these inner teachings on forgiveness, and Salome begins to unfold this whole metaphysical teaching about the exchange of sparks, and how this has to do with forgiveness and this releasing of these karmic cords that happens when souls in the karmic matrix basically come into contact or need to be resolved. So it begins to ask these really deeper questions about how these karmic seeds or these karmic cords are bound or are created through these exchanges of sparks, and how this is basically something that's always ongoing with beings, whether we're conscious or not. There is this ongoing exchange of energy that we are constantly, as beings in the material dimension, coming into being. This is an ongoing event, and it can bind a soul or it can help liberate a soul as we create these connections inwardly. And this teaching explores something of this deeper mystery of what it means to release or dissolve something of these karmic cords that can be bound between souls. Because as we are coming into contact or coming into being, we can hold light power for another, as we do. We in this exchange of sparks, and another being can hold light for us. And meaning something of our recognition or realization of our who and what we are in our light body and nature is not so separated apart. There is not the idea of a soul in a jar idea, kind of like a little light fly, right? I'm thinking of this really silly cartoonish idea of one of those little bugs that are light bugs that are in a jar, and that really limited idea of soul seems to be really in the flatland, in the idea of what this greater matrix of the one soul is really hinting at, and this coming into recognition of this pure natural state, this groundless ground from which everything arises. Yeah, there's a deep mystery here. So Salome is trying to explore this mystery of how we hold, or when coming into contact with beings, that we hold these sparks of light of others, and they in within us, and in this exchange, there is a mending or a healing, a rectification of the holy soul. What does this mean? And so we could explore something perhaps in that mystery as well. But these are some of the questions that were arising as I was contemplating this section. I would be very curious to have you stir some of these questions as to what was coming up within your own contemplations in regard to this section.
I really enjoyed the relating of So the linking of the sparks with the forgiveness and the idea of karma and releasing these debts. I particularly love the phrase where if there's an impure exchange with another and they sin against you, well, I sort of expanded that to and I sin against them. That be swift from your side to forgive and ask for forgiveness. But if forgiveness isn't forthcoming from the other side, then just let them have their spark and your spark. I thought that was such good advice in such a beautiful way, because forgiveness it's a tough thing for the nefesh, or for human beings at my stage of development, at any rate. It's hard. It's a wonderful thing, but it's also not, as Tal said on Sunday. It's easy, but it's simple, but it's not easy.
Absolutely. I mean, what you're sharing really begins to define this greater matrix of what's happening internally between beings, whether they're aware of it or not. In an unconscious, in an unenlightened state, this karmic wheel, this interaction is happening, and it can allow a soul, it can bind a soul and souls together in a way that until that's resolved, until there's a resolution, that karmic continuum, that karmic cord will continue until it's resolved. Something of its essence and nature has to be resolved or revealed within that. I don't know if that's making sense, but perhaps we can give an example of something of in the vital, or in the ruach, or in the outer neshama, because in the interiors of neshama, there is no taint, there is no stain, there is hence no beginning, no end, there is no sin. But in these other dimensions of the soul, there is this karmic continuum that's playing itself out. Until there's a return to this natural source, this natural state, this resting in the natural state, it's going to continue to play itself out, if that is making sense. There is this karmic cord that just seems to oscillate until there's a resolution, if that's making sense.
Caught my attention, Elder Yule, was when she said right in the second paragraph, to give is to receive, so you must forgive. Right at the beginning of the teaching. And I'm thinking about that in terms of Malkut, and Malkut has no light of its own. So it would seem that we are given something from this endless beginning. I was kind of relating that to the parable of the talents. When the owner gives 5 talents to one, 2 talents to the other, and 1 talent to a third, and then goes away on his journey. In other words, he's hidden. All right? So everyone has been given this gift, and it seems like forgiveness is that one main thing that's needed, and it's harder for some than for others to access. If that makes any sense. I'm looking at the example of the one with the one talent that buried it. And he ends up being termed, well, a worthless servant, as it says in the parable. However, I think it has to do with the fact that he did not, perhaps that talent, I'm feeling, was he didn't forgive, and so he separated himself from others, separated himself from his master, because he had this distorted view of his master, and it's that distortion that keeps us from forgiving. So while the others, he who has will be given more. In other words, they forgive. They give it. They give the benefit of the doubt. It's given up front. But he who does not have, even what he has, will be taken from him, which means he did have it. He clearly had that talent, or that, I want to say, that capacity to forgive. Maybe I'm reading something into this, but I wonder if you could elaborate on that, and do you agree, or how do you feel about that?
It's beautiful. Hearing the mystery of that parable brings to light one has to have something on the table to offer, a life to offer. They have to have something to give. If not, there's the offering can't really be taken up by the Holy One. And it seems this whole idea of these talents seem to be something of having a life to give, to take up, something to offer up to the Holy One. If one's not fully giving of oneself, and their talents, meaning their gifts, their who and what they are in the Holy One, if they're not offering this up, they're withholding. They're not truly being themselves. And so in that sense, there is not full forgiveness. There's not a full not a complete offering. Something is not fully being offered up. So I'm hearing in what you're sharing, in light of forgiveness, in order to forgive, we have to be able to let go within ourselves something of these cords, because it's interconnected with another. If we've come into conflict or a condition with another soul, and we think negative, or we bind ourselves even further into negativity or sin or ignorance with another, it can bind us to not only this incarnation, but possible future incarnations of this ongoing, not revelation, but ongoing gilgalim, this turning until something is resolved or worked out between the two souls, of letting go or returning to its natural state. If I'm hearing what you're saying, something about truly being oneself and the offering and these talents. If I'm hearing your question, there's something about aligning within ourselves, or who we truly are in the Holy One. If that's what I'm hearing you say.
One of the things this was bringing up for me, because I'm just always interested in these exchange of sparks. But when we do giving and receiving, we are consciously transforming these negative sparks, and we're imparting this positive energy, these positive sparks to other beings. This is what this teaching of exchanging sparks brought up for me.
Absolutely. Beautiful insight with the giving and receiving. I think that's the mystery that's really being spoken of with the exchange of sparks, that there is this constant giving and receiving all of the time with beings and forces as coming into being in this realm. How could it be otherwise? And so in our interactions, as this particular story is outlining with Salome, hinting at we must be inward to inward, meaning when with others, when it's possible to uplift, transform in the sense of bringing something of an elevation in consciousness with others, to draw out something of their these qualities, these spiritual qualities. I think this gets at the whole teaching at the end with the saint, where the Gnostic saint is talking about Magdalene's teachings about impregnations and what it means when we encounter a holy Zadik or a holy one in continuum, and how they can exchange or impregnate, meaning in the sense of allow something of an energetic exchange, what might be called an Ivarim, or an impregnation of something of a higher elevation, a higher state of consciousness, to enter and help uplift something within us so that we can transform or elevate our state of consciousness to be able to perceive something that we were unconscious of before, which allows us to shift our state of awareness, to actually maybe realign something in a new way we haven't perceived before. So it takes us out of the karmic continuum or a karmic rut that creates that pattern. Oftentimes these exchanges and sparks keep us bound because we're limited in view and capacity. Much like a lucid dream, we're bound to the dream by law, meaning by the karmic pattern, we're bound to it. We don't have the ability to perceive or see it. And so through these impregnations, meaning these exchanges of sparks through a holy Zadikim or in light continuum, this could be through interdimension, meaning angelic or holy jinn, so to speak, where they're allowing this light presence, this light energy to shift our awareness, bring lucidity, clarity, uplift that spark and return it to its natural space. And this is, again, this has to do with the whole mystery of exchange of sparks with other beings all the time, this is an ongoing play in this matrix of forces and beings. So I'm hearing that with Ryan, with what you're saying about this ongoing giving and receiving. And while we might have a formal meditation practice to do this, I think quite naturally, we're doing it all the time. When we begin to do it more consciously, in places and spaces with beings, it becomes more of a conscious interaction and this exchange consciously with beings uplifting in continuum. So I'm hearing that quite strongly in what you're sharing, Brian.
Thank you all for this insight. There was in contemplating this chapter, there's been definitely a swirling, and now it's starting to come through clear for me. And what I'm hearing in this is a play of Yesod within and behind Malkut. And this karmic matrix is formed in this way, and as we're walking through, we have this physical body, but we also have this light body. And in this light body, these exchange of sparks are happening. And when one becomes more conscious of this is where you're able to uplift and go higher up in the tree of life. You're able to do this from Tiferet. You're able to uplift. And as it says in this chapter, as one walks through life, this exchange is always happening. It's constantly ongoing, but it's the purity. So what I'm hearing in this is these attributes are lower in the tree of life. It stays, but when we're able to go inward and uplift, that's when this becomes more clear. Those impurities, we're able to lose that impurity. And this is something of in this conscious play, there's more of a divine action within and behind. And I just wanted to real quick tell a story, and it's very fitting because this just happened, kind of came through and finished today. There was about 5 years ago, we trapped this really big cat outside in our feral colony. And he was so big where he actually got out of the cage the first time, bashed his way out. Very angry, very aggressive cat. But we trapped him, brought him in. And the Humane Society said this was a very mean cat. He was very aggressive. And we had a hard time with him, but we got him out there and haven't seen him. And he was old then. And they said they were amazed at how old he was because they don't last that long. And this was about 5 years ago. And he's now just shown back up. So he's been spayed or neutered. And we just noticed his clipped ear, and he's looking very rough. He's come here and he's about to pass. But what he's been doing out there is protecting this little litter that's not his. And he will fight against other cats, other raccoons, and he's out there. He's going to leave this line. He's going to put his life on the line for these little kittens. And he'll start eating. The kittens will come up. He'll back away, let them eat, that type of thing. He's caring for them. And so there's definitely, even with these animal people, there's an exchange of sparks that definitely happened there. There was a sign of appreciation, and he's probably been watching the whole time and seeing what we're doing. And this meanness is actually serving this purpose. It was very beautiful, but he's looking rough. So he's come back to pass. But it was just I thought it fit in really well with what we're talking about.
That's beautiful. Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I think beings on all these different levels are absolutely, there's an exchange, and especially even in the animal realm, where you have something of these beings who are a little bit more even evolved in their own right, definitely enacting something of this elevation to draw out another, or this exchange that's happening. I think that's how evolution of coming into being transpires in this realm. I think your insight into Yesod and this joining with Tiferet and this inside outside is an ongoing evolution of coming into being, and where it stops and where it ends, I don't think you can really put a limit on that, because it's expanding all these levels of soul. This matrix of the Holy One is intelligence itself, playing itself out of what soul means. Because as I was trying to explain earlier, with the vastness of what soul is, without beginning, without end. Wow, yeah, I mean, that's a much bigger picture than these little ideas of bodies. If I'm making any sense, it just seems so much more, such a vaster idea of soul than at the outset.
Going back to Brian's looking into giving and receiving, what came to mind was how this practice over time really evolves this empathy that one starts to feel for others. And, we get so stuck in, the personality and life display and what is happening in our own reality that we forget to try to understand where others are coming from. And so, I think a lot about the miracles of Yeshua and the empathy or compassion that he had for beings just walking around in his lucid dream, and how that's so much expression of giving and receiving. We tend to push away the empathy, but I'm feeling like through these deeper exchange of sparks, there is a deeper empathy for beings, and perhaps things are not quite as we think they are. So just a little thought I had.
Yeah, it's a big thought. Empathy is huge in the sense of realizing we're not separate or apart from each other. And I think in this deep recognition, you realize that you are not separate from another, and that we are interly connected to everything and everyone, and that there is deeper parts of ourselves that know that. And when there's a recognition of that, or a realization of that interconnectedness, how could one not have empathy? Because one knows that they're deeply interconnected with that being and with all beings. As James was explaining in the animal realm, even in that dimension, we can experience something of that, knowing that we share in this greater body of vision, of deep within, that we're so integrally woven, interconnected with all beings, that we're not separate. And so I think that true empathy, that true compassion that comes out as Yeshua is showing us, revealing, is our true nature, knowing that truly there is only the one, and that looking into another, we're seeing the Holy One, we're seeing the this deep essence, this true being, when looking into another. I'm sure we've all had those experiences of that deep gaze into another's eyes and recognizing something of, wow, this being is, there's a much deeper connection with another than we think. And when there is that deep heart empathy that you're describing, I think we're connecting into that experience. Unfortunately, when folks are not in that state, we tend to do some strange and twisted things, evil things, because we don't really see that we're connected, and we see things separate. And this has a lot to do with the karmic, these exchanges of sparks in a negative sense, how things can oscillate into strange spirals until they're resolved. But there has to be that ground of recognition of the emptiness of this natural state. I was just asking Malachi on Sunday about forgiveness, in the sense of when we when we have something, a recognition of our natural state, and this groundless ground of who and what we are in the Holy One, when we have some kind of recognition of that, quite naturally, as we experience something of that, or relax, rest into that natural state, quite naturally, any kind of sin or karmic cord will naturally dissolve, because there's nothing obstructing it, because it's seeing itself as it is, in its right nature, its right place. And the sense of self, or the idea of person or history, this idea of thinking you are something in that sense, creates a veil to the Holy One in the sense of I exist, or this self exists, which is not bad, but it's just in its true nature, it doesn't exist in the way we think. And so something of this empathy that you're sharing speaks about returning to the natural state of who and what we are quite naturally.
I think of the Gospel of Thomas, saying 10, Jesus said, I've cast fire upon the world, and look, I'm guarding it until it blazes. This verse, it came upon it last week, and it connected with what we spoke about last week about the Magdala said, I am the shin. And I'm just thinking of the fire, and I'm thinking how, or this is sort of what comes up for me, is that I think we're all kind of fires. And a spark arises when the fire is disturbed. And so there's something, I think of saying too as well, how there's something, and we kind of disturb each other in positive ways and negative ways. And that shin is, thinking back to last week, delivers, and Yahweh delivers. How this fire and this tending is love, and and till it blazes. I think of Pentecost, and I think of just this vision of oneness, I guess, as well. So those are a few thoughts.
Yeah. Beautiful, brother. Thank you. Reminds me of also this verse 77 in the Gospel of Thomas, where Yeshua says, actually I have the verse right here. I'd love to read it. I am the light over all things. I am all. From me all has come forth, and to me all has reached. Split a piece of wood. I am there. Lift up a stone, and you will find me there. Seems to speak of this mystery of Messiah, the light of the Messiah, and this true light, this true cross, this true awareness that you're speaking. And that within all beings there is this light. And something of this exchange of sparks, meaning light has been splintered and has to be rejoined, retained. Something of this conscious continuity. And if light has been shattered, meaning there's something unconscious that has to be uplifted, returned to its natural state. And so I'm hearing this fire of the shin that heats up the body, lights us up, and restores, brings lucidity, clarity, remembrance, restoration, healing to the true body. When we speak of the body of Christ, There seems to be something of this restoring what we're doing in the Messianic continuum. It seems in this exchange of sparks and returning these sparks to itself, we are mending this greater body that is within and without us at the same time. We are parts of the living body. And by doing so, we are mending, joining, uplifting, bringing awareness to a bigger body in consciousness. And it seems that's something of the great work in the sense of why we take up these practices. And by doing so, we are assisting others in that remembrance, that restoration, this Messianic continuum of joining, uplifting others in this light, is what I'm hearing what you're saying.
I really enjoyed this reading. A lot of what I have to say dances around everyone else's thoughts as well as what will be added in. But this week, I really, not just this week, but for the last couple of weeks, I've really been focused on reaction and proaction. You know, being reactive to something or being proactive in it. And in the story, they say that the spark exchange can serve to uplift, progress, and even bring salvation. You know, and through being proactive and going within our inner being in unity into the one soul, you know, we're letting the Lord and the Spirit take that action through us. In a sense, that's also us picking up our cross and slowly transforming the way I see it, that wood into that cross of light. When I hear many times we say, you know, we're not saved for ourselves, but for others. And again, if we do not forgive, we are not forgiven. So I kind of see those going hand in hand as well, because we've been talking over the Shabbat. You know, sometimes we have to stand back and we have to go within and we need to look at things to find the understanding to a situation. You know, sometimes to really get a broader picture of that tapestry, if you want. And, you know, us being one as many and many as one, Joshua said, know thyself. And then learning to know thyself, we start to realize we are all interconnected. And I kind of see that tapestry there, but I see those webs of interconnectedness that we can make through these exchanges that sometimes trap us here, pinches in the tapestry, so we're not really seeing the whole picture. So by going in and asking for that forgiveness for ourselves and for others, it helps to clear that picture, uplift more into the one soul, the Spirit, which I think is just amazing. In that, I do have to share a witnessing of that this week, which is funny. It was actually about forgiveness. Over the last weekend, my dad had some friends over, and just after the sun went down, we were going to set off some fireworks. Well, my neighbor, a couple doors down, came in a very not nice way and started yelling and screaming at everybody because her dogs were outside and they start freaking out. So I just told the boys, okay, that's enough. No more. Put it away. And then the boys started going, well, her dogs do this. And then it was like she was already angry, upset about something before she came over. That's for sure, because there was something else packing behind that. And then these guys started packing their own stuff. And I'm like, I just went inside. I sat in my chair and I just started asking for forgiveness because none of them knew what they were doing. And I could feel like the neighbor had something else disturbing her as well that just added to that. And I didn't want to add anything to it because everybody else was making more than enough. Then I was like, I need to go find a corner to be alone. So I decided to say prayers for specifically for forgiveness for the whole thing. Within a very short time, the neighbor sent me a text apologizing for the way she had come over and that she didn't want to be that kind of person. She explained her own agitations and that she was already pre-agitated and whatnot. And I apologized. So you know what? It's true. You had dogs. I have a dog too. I have to put him inside. Next time I'm going to think, and I'm going to let you know ahead of time. And then afterwards, I had to go out well, I let the Spirit work with that, but I went out and talked to the boys. The Spirit said the right things to say to them, and everything just like dropped, like it never even happened. Like it was all up here, like it was going to turn into a big yard war, and it just like dropped flat, like it never happened. It was just amazing. And I've actually watched this with a few other things I decide to, turn and be proactive with under different things, forgiveness, abundance, whatever it was. But forgiveness was a couple times this week. And I literally seen this change and this calm that just came over all of these guys too, that we're all like poking each other, firing each other's fires up here. And it just like quelled it. It was gone. So that's what I wanted to share this evening. Thank you.
It's beautiful, sister. Thank you for sharing. I'm hearing so many wonderful things in that. Holding the space for another with what you're doing, being inward. Sometimes not having to say anything, but being internally holding the space for another can radically transform a space inwardly. I recall a very similar experience where not having to say much words outwardly, but inwardly holding the space within and being mindful of where I was internally in an environment can uplift the environment, the vibrations of that space, and actually transform that space by holding that space. And it can become quite visible and felt by others, whether they're aware of it or not. Perhaps, maybe not. But in that case, it doesn't really matter because you're being proactive in the sense of being unactive, meaning not in the negative sense, but being neutral in the sense of holding and being in the heart and being mindful of that space. And it can radically shift an environment. And I think has a lot to do with exchange of sparks as well, because we're coming into contact not only with beings' forces, but with environments, which, how do you separate that out? I don't really think you can, but environments included, we can exchange and uplift and help facilitate through the Holy One prayers of uplifting and diverting energy that can help restore. And obviously, with the dogs and your neighbors, it sounded like it may have had an effect that uplifted that space in that moment. So beautiful. Thank you for sharing.
What Elle was saying very much reminded me of in the Gospel of Matthew, there's this conversation of nonviolence, how if somebody asks for a shirt, give them your coat. If they ask you to walk a mile with them, walk 3 miles with them. And I hear that in this exchange, that if one holds peace for another, then then one takes on the karma of another, and the exchange deepens that way. And I felt that reaction is can be violent inwardly. So I was just feeling this nonviolent view, and I suppose that goes into forgiveness too, that once we realize there is no substantial self to be hurt or to be impacted by, then, what is there to forgive? So I was just feeling that in the conversation.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Just as I think good can be contagious in the right sense, in the sense where we can uplift the vibe, so to speak, and we can, like Elle was suggesting, we can be proactive in the sense of taking something up and transforming it and realigning it internally. And I think that's what you're saying, what you're sharing as well in the sight of Matthew, of taking up these divine actions and being that action, being the seeing, being the hearing, being the knowing, in the sense of being aligned and being not in the sense of the doer, but being sensitive, open, and receptive to what's happening in the moment and what's needed in the moment, and enacting what's needed in the moment could be a good thing in a positive vibe. I know as a hospice volunteer for some years, oftentimes just being in the space itself, I'm sure you're well aware, Catherine, can uplift being without much words. Not much has to be spoken, but beholding the space within, kind of like the mother practice of just abiding and being in the Holy Mother. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that.
Two things came to me while reading it. Many things, but these two things is what I'm gonna want to share. Like that we're told and that we know that creation is sacred as it is, and also that we're told that what binds you will also set you free. So it gave me that picture of all these interconnectedness and these sparks connection, and they can be seemingly negative, even deeply negative, but in a sense it is like it's supposed to be, because it is sacred as it is, and it holds that potential for that movement into us realizing and resting into the grace. I even almost get this image of this cosmic egg that is that grace that's inside of everything, and then you have that surface there that's kind of covered. You could call it the impermanence of the dragon skin, and on the outside we have karma, we have consequence, and we have the law, and on the inside we have grace, and all these sparks creates connections from what is on the outside to what is on the inside, even if they are negative, because it's a potential for upliftment. If there were no connection, even as negative or positive, there would be no potential for uplifting. So that's kind of what I got to, like that potential that is in both the positive and the negative, and that deep grace that is within everything. Also, we could talk about that river of already, but we have many names, but we can't really put words to it. But it's inside of everything, and any of those sparks can help lead us there and to that deep resting in Neshama and beyond. So that was what I had to share. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm hearing a much bigger picture of coming into being, and how everything is quite essential and participates in the coming into being. That certain veils may be necessary for coming into being. I mean, how could it be otherwise? And then at certain times, there's an unveiling, and there's more clarity, more continuity in what's happening. But I think suggesting that things are saying that the universe is sacred as it is seems to speak of the spiritual timing of the Shekinah and something else that's transpiring. Not to say that we don't strive, not to say that we don't invoke and invite and welcome the Shekinah to unveil, but there's also this working out of karma and coming into being that so intricately connected with others that it's hard to see the division where those lines begin and end. Certain things that must transpire for another to come into being, because that being will affect another being, and so on and so forth. That's a wild contemplation, because we're so intricately woven, like we were speaking before, and so there's much more to the matrix, karmic matrix, and the timing of the Shekinah and the Holy One, and how the Holy One's unveiling and revealing itself, if I'm making any sense at all. Well, perhaps this is a good place to pause. There's been a lot shared and a lot of mysteries explored. So thank you all for helping me unfold and draw some of these teachings out. With your help, I can draw some of the things that Spirit has showed and revealed for me as well. So thank you for participating in that and drawing it out. And thank you all for bringing your light power and uplifting the space. May we give thanks and praise to the Holy One of Being, restoring and remembering who we are in you, Holy One. May this light go forth, touching one and all alike in this remembrance, giving praise, giving thanks to your blessed holy name. Il Adonai. Amen and amen.